Hello and hello. This is Carol,
And this is Joey.
and this is episode 2 of Two Woke Bonnets, where we're watching Little House on the Prairie and seeing if it's woke, or if it could be woke, or if it could be more woke.
How
Um,
well does it fare in 2024?
True. Yes, it has been 50 years since this show debuted, and I am old. We are officially on episode number 1. We did the pilot, which was episode 0 in the last episode. But episode number 1, a Harvest of Friends, which sounds like a horror movie title. It really sounds like a Children of the Corn. Children of the Corn ate a harvest of friends. Um,
Yes.
but we are officially in Walnut Grove now. They stopped at Walnut Grove from their trip back east from Kansas when they were kicked off land. And they stop in Walnut Grove, Minnesota, on the banks of Plum Creek, which we see about 5 seconds of.
Yes, I love that that's how they start the episode. It's like, by the way, for a while, we lived in this sod house underground, and you're going to see me walk out of it. And now we're moving to Walnut Grove.
Yeah, yeah. So Walnut Grove, Minnesota, Charles, Carolyn, the 3 girls, and he okay, so the plot synopsis of this episode is Pa does way too much. He decides to do three jobs and build a house in 3 weeks. The timeline here is just all sorts of weird. It's not working. And he overworks himself and hurts himself, and he has to rely on the help of others, which is the moral that they're trying to get. It's like it takes a village, basically.
Yes. And this is the first appearance of the village, key village person that we never see again.
Yes. Yes, because we're going to keep a list of the disappeared, which are people who live in Walnut Grove, supposedly, who show up for an episode and are never ever seen again. But here
heard from again.
Heard from. Yeah.
Yeah.
We meet our town folk, Harriet and Nels Oleson, who own the mercantile, Doc Baker, who is the doctor, Reverend Alden, Lars Hansen, who owns the mill, and we'll talk about O'Brien here in a little bit, but I don't consider him a town folk because he's our first disappeared. He comes and he goes.
Yes, but he's a key player.
He's a
key player at the beginning of this episode. But yes, we never see him again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Does Pop buy the land from Lars?
No, he buys it from Hansen.
Okay, from Lars
who owns the mill.
Yeah.
So he works it out with Hansen, and then he starts working at the mill for Hansen.
Yeah, because he's working off the wood used to build the new house. And let me tell you, Charles builds one house and one house only. It's an A-frame with an abutment, but at least here's so the girls.
But kudos to him this time, instead of last episode where he uses logs in a prairie with no woods. We actually have a way that these trees actually exist. So, and also in Walnut Grove, we do see trees. Maybe not out on the lot, but we do see trees.
Make a whole lot of sense, because wouldn't it make more sense to build a log cabin in Minnesota than Kansas? Could have saved yourself some money, Charles, if you had just chopped down the trees yourself.
Yeah.
But
and also, this is the first time that they're around people. So clearly in the pilot, they had very limited resources because they kept it mainly to the 4 of them, the group of people that they allow to die at the very beginning of the pilot. The family, right? Then Mr. Edwards. And then other than that, the only other people that appear on screen are the 4 Native Americans.
And the 2 army dudes.
And then 2 army people for a brief scene.
Yeah.
So we don't see a lot of people in the pilot. Now we actually see townsfolk.
Yes.
We see villagers. Budget has been approved.
Yes. So
welcome to Hollywood. We're no longer out in Northern California.
So Charles builds a house and works at Hansen's mill. And then he goes
to pay for the house. Yeah.
He goes into the mercantile, and we're introduced to Nels and Harriet.
Because they left the plow behind.
Yeah, they left the plow behind, and he needs a plow and seed. And here's the thing, we're supposed to hate Harriet at the very beginning, and she is very rude in this scene, but I don't blame her here. I don't consider this to be a Harriet Oleson crime, because he comes in looking for credit for a plow and seed for 100 acres. And I'm like, that's a lot of credit, dude. That's a lot of credit. And she don't know you.
And she explains, we have a drawer full of receipts. So they were kind in the past.
Yes.
They did extend credit in the past.
Yeah.
And they got burned for it. So
I don't blame her for not wanting to do this for a brand new farmer just come to town.
I really feel like his hot-headed temper immediately after this is what causes her to, from then on out,
have issues with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, she has issues with him anyway, right? Because it's country versus town people. We won't say city.
We'll get into next episode, but
right.
I think that's funny.
But like, he doesn't really give her a chance. He immediately gets upset that she implies that they realize that he may have good intentions, but they have a drawer full of good intentions.
Yeah. So I don't blame Harriet at all for saying no to this. I thought it was actually pretty presumptuous of Charles to walk in and say, yeah, I need all this credit.
Yeah.
But then he leaves, and at the seed, the feed and seed is a plow. And
can we talk about that for a second? Very small little town, and yet you have two different stores you can shop at for plows. Like, there's that one of them's not cornering the market.
Yeah,
on plows.
It seems redundant.
That you could have here your Sears and Roebuck plow from the Mercantile, or you could have this other, Home Depot plow.
Yeah. So that seemed off to me. Excuse me.
Like, why would two stores have seed?
Yeah.
Like, why is he trying to get credit from the Olsons for seed?
That the feed and seed would have problems with that. And say, hey, Olson, stop selling seed. Hey, that's my job. That's my feed and seed.
Yeah, why would you need two stores? Maybe that's why we never see him again.
Yeah.
That's why it's O'Brien. It's not Hanson, it's O'Brien.
Yeah, it's O'Brien. And part of the feed and seed is collapsing. So Charles strikes an insane deal that he will fix the roof of the feed and seed and move like 100 bags of seed in 3 weeks. And he signs a note saying if he doesn't get it done, he's forfeiting his oxen, which he had just, again, purchased from Lars Hansen. Lars Hansen is like the fairy godfather for this family almost immediately.
Right. And also, like, once again, traded the horses for ponies, training the ponies for steer.
For oxen.
Yeah, for oxen. So, like, this guy never holds on to anything.
No. If you were attached to Pat and Patty, forget it. They're gone.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, did they keep the foal? I think that may be Bunny later on, but okay, whatever. But he signs a note saying that he'll do this in 3 weeks. And I'm like, dude, you're overextending yourself because you're working half a day at Hansen's. You're going to put half a day here. And he actually breaks it down for Carolyn. 6 hours at Hansen, 6 hours at O'Brien's. He's going to come home and plow the field after. No, you're not.
And continue building the house. Because they are still living in the underground.
Yeah.
Even though they don't show it.
He finishes the house first, which is, they have to because they need to film in the house.
Yeah. But then all the extras, like, she doesn't actually have any storage cabinets. She just has 4 walls on her roof.
Yeah.
And a loft.
It's insane to think you can do all of this on your own. And I'm not sure why he felt the need to immediately have a plow. It's like, hunt for a season, do what you did in Kansas, hunt for a season, get some pelts, do some trading, and buy the plow. But it's like,
and yet you never see any of these people wearing pelts, by the way.
No, they're all very manufactured Prairie gear.
Yeah.
I hesitate to say I looked very closely, but he did have buttons on his pants, not a zipper. I was looking for a zipper.
What sexy 70s pants those are, though.
Let me tell you, those pants will get tighter and tighter as the show goes on.
Yes.
Um, and he, much like William Shatner in Star Trek, will never forgo an opportunity to take his shirt off.
I also feel like this needs to be a count going
The
forward.
count, Pa takes his shirt off. Okay.
Does Posh take his shirt off in this episode?
Yes. Okay. So, he's doing all of this work and he's falling asleep. You know, he can't go to church because this is where we get a couple of Charleses here. We're keeping track of how many times Carolyn yells Charles. She actually does two Charleses here and one Charles Ingalls. And this is where we get the Charles Ingalls, and it's because he's plowing on the Sabbath. She takes the
Yes.
girls to church and he's asleep, and she leaves him to sleep, and she comes back and he's plowing. And he gets mad because like, God knows farmers. And I'm like,
Well, and can we talk about Reverend Alden in this particular episode?
God. Reverend Alden is like, wow, dude.
The first time we meet Reverend Alden, who is a beloved character in later
Yes.
episodes.
He's like, y'all
again, he becomes beloved and he starts off as an ass.
Yeah.
Right?
Y'all are
like
sinners.
he's sitting there.
I don't see your husbands.
And it's like, hello, do you know where you're living?
Yeah, you
are living in territory where people are having to like start from scratch.
Yes. And as we will learn as the show goes on, none of these guys are good at farming.
It's just they weren't good at anything else, so they figured they could give it a shot. Yeah.
Here. Doc Baker actually meets Charles because Charles is walking to work. And again, how far are they from town?
Well, close enough that the girls can walk.
Yes. And he can walk to work and back, but it's like, oh my gosh, there's another hour of walking. So 6 hours here, 6 hours there, an hour walking. I'm being generous that it's only 30 minutes here and back. But you're fine lining your time here, Charles, and it's not going to work. And of course it doesn't. He helps Doc Baker out with a wheel. So Doc gives them chickens and, you know, makes friends. He makes friends with Doc Baker. He makes friends with Lars Hansen. I'm just going to call him Hansen from now on. Everybody else. He makes friends with Nels, but of course Harriet is Harriet.
Right.
I'm not going to count a crime for Harriet here though, because she's just that's just good business.
Not yet. Not yet.
So on the first afternoon that he has off, he actually has a couple of hours in an afternoon off, and he takes his family on a picnic. Charles.
Well, he finishes up his responsibility with Hansen. Hansen says, by the end of today, I'll owe you 50 cents.
Which seems insane to me because that was a lot of wood. And the land.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's still paying on the land. I can't imagine that 3 weeks of work would have paid off the land.
Well, if they were in the territory, there's probably some of it that comes from the government.
Yeah.
So,
but he pays off Hansen for the lumber, and he takes the afternoon, and they go on a picnic, and he's flying a kite.
No, he takes a whole day.
Oh, that's right. Whole day.
So he doesn't work at either business. So why wouldn't you take this picnic once you're done? Like, you were so close. You finished the roof.
Yeah, you finished.
All you had left was
like half a day. Yeah, take half a day.
Why would you not take the half day from Hansen, say, don't pay me the 50 cents, let me finish this?
Yeah.
Or take one more day. But he doesn't finish his job. Let's just talk about that.
Yeah,
he doesn't finish the job before he takes a vacation.
Yeah.
If finished the job, we wouldn't be in this mess.
If he hadn't signed the paper, we wouldn't be in this mess. If he hadn't decided
he was very quick to sign that paper.
Yeah.
He got, he walks out of Olson's mercantile because they immediately say he's not going to do it, and he gets so offended. But I guess he knows there's only 2 shops in all of town that sell plows, so.
And he immediately signs his life.
Maybe it's because a woman told him he wasn't going to do it.
Maybe. Also, can I say this show has a problem with Irish people? Because more than
little stereotypical. O'Brien
is very Irish. And
Yep.
you'll find in later episodes, whenever somebody is
A little bit sneaky.
sneaky, they're generally Irish or Johnny
They're
Cash.
not, they're not Wisconsin.
No,
They're not Minnesota.
no, he's very Irish.
Yeah.
But they take the day and they go on a picnic, and he's flying a kite. And I love this because Mary's like, I didn't know Pa could fly a kite. And I'm like, he can't. He's flying it way too close to the trees.
The only tree, the only tree for miles around.
Miles, and Charlie Browns the kite into the tree. And then he immediately is like, I'll get it. It's a kite. It's paper and a couple pieces of wood. Let it go, Charles. Let it go.
Let it go.
But no, he climbs the tree. And
I'll
then
get it. Yeah.
a stunt man falls out because the dude did not look a thing like Michael Landon. A stunt man falls out and Charles breaks 3 ribs.
Yeah. Laura gets sent. Laura gets sent to get Doc Baker. Because again, Mary is frozen in place.
Mary has a problem just freezing up whenever anything bad happens. This will get her taken hostage several times in the future. She just freezes. So Laura goes and gets Doc Baker and Hanson because Hanson is just like, I don't know, he adopted the family.
Yeah.
And Doc Baker's like, you can't work. You can't work for 3 weeks or for 10 days. I can't even remember how many times.
Week to 10 days at least.
Week to 10 days. And he's like, I got to finish my job. I got to finish the job. Nope. And Hanson says, I'll talk to O'Brien for you. I don't know if he ever does. Because not 2 days later, Carolyn's out plowing the field. Again.
Yep.
Pulling her load there. So,
yep.
And
equal opportunity work.
Yeah. And O'Brien comes and takes the oxen. Before the time allotted, mind you.
Yeah.
It's like a day before the contract is expiring.
Yeah.
Because and so Carolyn goes back in and Charles is like, well, put my shirt on. Because he takes his shirt off for the scene.
Well, because, wraps right up to the nips.
Wraps around to the nips, yeah. Nice, clean shaven chest there of Michael Landon. I do not find Michael Landon attractive. Truly, I don't. But I don't find any of the men of Walnut Grove attractive.
I find 2 of the men at Walnut Grove attractive, but we have not seen them in this episode.
Okay, we'll get to that.
I have a type.
Yeah, I do know you have a type.
I have a Victor French type. I have a Merlin Olsen type. I have a type.
Victor French comes close.
Yes.
Victor French comes close. But anyway,
Victor French not necessarily handsome, but engaging, charismatic, and he teaches you how to spit. All good things you need to know.
Yeah. So he puts his shirt on and he's going to go with broken ribs to move these bags of grain. And
the 2 girls follow 20 steps behind him because he's not going to.
And at this point, Carolyn's like, I'm out. I'm just staying home. Screw you sign the paper.
You signed this paper and didn't tell me about it, Charles.
I'll plow the field, but I'll be damned if I move grain. But the 2 girls follow. And this is where the show just irritates me sometimes, because I get the moral of this episode is that it takes a village and, rely on your friends. If you need help, ask for it. Maybe don't steal oxen before the contract's up. Maybe be nice if somebody's hurting themselves, something like that. But it takes so long for these town folk watching this man haul grain with broken ribs. Knowing
that he has broken ribs, because Doc is standing there talking to Lars.
There. And it's obvious he's in intense pain. And they're just watching him. It takes forever. And it takes until
there's a certain amount of mask pride in it that may be the reason why they step back, because they don't want to insult him. Because let's be honest, he flew off the handle before.
That's true.
But also,
still, it's like it's until he falls off the grain stack And the girls, the two little girls, go and start hauling grain, that they finally get off their
Say,
asses and help.
that's a good idea. And let's remember, as we watch the episodes going forward, O'Brien's is right next to Hanson's mill.
Yeah.
Because again, he's one of the disappeared.
Yeah.
So when
He
you
disappeared.
watch in subsequent episodes, look for O'Brien's, because I didn't see it in next
Yeah.
episode.
I didn't either.
It's like
I'm looking
and that
for it.
means either they pulled down all of Pa's hard work
He chased
and
O'Brien
he
out of
loaded it
town.
up and he moved it somewhere else. They chased him out of town or something happened. So
I think Lars has a dark secret behind the mill. It's just this rows and rows of disappeared graves. Anyway,
you just gotta go through. He also has a coffin business, 2 for 1.
O'Brien is chastised and he's like, when the wee bairns. I'm like, you're not Scottish, dude.
He's like, well, I was just trying to be helpful. I mean, because we were already out here, so we just took your thing because you weren't going to be able to do it. So
Saving
so
the trip into town, my lad.
Yeah.
But everyone looks at him hardly.
Even Nels Olson comes and helps.
Any old Nels Olson comes out and helps.
Now, can we talk about one thing? We talk about the kindness of Doc Baker, right? He fixes the wheel, so Doc gives him a ride into town so he doesn't end up being late for his job. And then he gives him chickens. But we find out that Doc really gives him chickens because everybody gives him chickens. And he doesn't know what else to do with it. So he's just like,
please take these chickens or I'll kill them.
Right, which is not encouraging words for the doc of the town. Maybe this is why he's the doc in the territory, because in the East Coast,
little town,
his track record was not so good.
Where all the wretched people go. So O'Brien is chastised and he's like, it was just business. It was just business. But they walk home and Charles got a better harvest than he ever thought he would get, a harvest of friends. It's like, I'd still harvest your wheat there, Charles. You're going to need the money.
Yeah. In my remembrance book. Yeah.
That's in her remembrance book. Oh my God. I'm going to keep, I think the remembrance book drops off here pretty quickly, but these first 2 episodes, she's constantly with the remembrance book. If I had a remembrance book. And that's the episode. To me, this is standard wokeness. I mean, it does take a village.
And there's still overtones of racial, not racial.
It's like an ethnic stereotype.
Ethnic stereotypes.
He's the only Irishman in the entire village, and he's the one who's
Liam O'Halloran, never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again.
Yes.
Was that an actual Irish actor playing an Irishman?
Ramon Bieri.
No. So it's really kind of a nice episode. I don't
as
like
you
the
pointed out, less than 2 years that they actually lived in Walnut Grove.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanson was a character in the books, so that is a true pulling over.
The Olsons were as well. In particular, Nellie, not necessarily Harriet and Nels, but Nellie was a character, and we'll get to Nellie in the next episode.
Yeah. And point of note, historical factoid, the very thing that Charles is accused of leaving without paying his debts, although he doesn't do it in this episode, in real life, he did it many times.
Yes, he did it quite a few times. There's a whole episode in Burr City where she doesn't even put it in the books because it was just a horrible, horrible time for the family. And she couldn't make it happy.
She couldn't make it idyllic. No.
Yeah. So
how many Charleses did we end up with?
We ended up with 2 Charleses and 1 Charles Ingalls, because
and the Charles Ingalls was the church one, right?
The church one. And Pa cried once. And that was at the end. when then they came over to help him, he teared up and looked all sweaty and sitting in the bottom of that stack of grain. I loved when the guys were bringing the grain to O'Brien's because they're it's like feathers. They're just throwing them over.
I
One
know,
hand,
like the little girls are like, "Argh." And the guys are like, yep, let's just, well, and also like they do a fireman's line, just like they would do with like a fireman water pail
yeah.
line. And so therefore they're not moving as much.
No, it's like
There's like 5 of them standing there, one grabs, hands to the next, and they hoist it on up. So
grab and go. But
yeah.
this is a pretty typical episode. I don't mind it so much. But
No,
yeah, the
I
racial
thought it was a good episode. I think it was realistic. The only thing is I was annoyed that he took the day off, the whole day off.
the whole day off. Yeah, instead of getting that done and having more time afterwards.
Yeah.
And it was
And
silly of him to agree to all of this in the first place. It was just take a half season and earn some money and buy your plow.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it seemed ridiculous that he had to do this so quickly.
Yes.
So that was a harvest of friends. And on to episode number 2, which is Country Girls. This seems out of place. This seems like this should have been the first episode to me, because the girls go to school for the first time, and it is literally the first time they've been to a school, which makes me question what they were doing in the big woods. Because Mary's like 8 or 9.
Well, they say that Ma taught them.
Yeah. So
but that if they ever got to a city, they were going to send the girls to school if there was a school nearby.
Yeah. So this episode makes no sense to me at all from the start. Okay, so we got the girls going to school. Laura doesn't want to go, but she goes. And they're immediately made fun of. And we meet Nellie Oleson and Willie Oleson.
Yes.
The kids of the Oleson Mercantile. And they are the wealthiest family in Walnut Grove. Keep that in mind. And they come to school and they're calling them like long-legged snipes.
Yes.
Neither of these girls is tall.
Because their dresses are short. And so there was a lot of legs showing. A lot of tight showing.
But their dresses are not they seem the same length as some of the other girls. This is what bugs me, because Nellie, who in all of her ringlet glory, incidentally, I want to shout out here, Allison Arngrim wrote a memoir called Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. Heavy recommendation. I loved that book. She is hysterical. She used to do stand-up comedy, and I wish she would tour again because I would love to see her. But Nellie, with her big ringlets and her satin dress and her modest size bows in this episode, they get gigantuan later on, but here it's modest size, looks at them and goes, "Country girls." And I'm like, honey, you live in the same town.
Yeah.
You're all country kids. Not a one of you is big city.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, where are the rest of these kids?
They're all farmers' kids, with the exception of the Olsons.
Yeah, unless you specifically have a business in town, which is dependent on these farmers and these country people to buy from you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's a couple of weird things in this episode, but go ahead.
Prejudice for the sake of a show.
Yeah.
It didn't make much sense to me. I can see, Nellie looking down on them because they don't have a lot of money, but nobody in this town has a lot of money. So, okay. But we meet Miss Beadle, who is the school teacher.
I always smells of lemon verbena.
Yeah, man, Laura has a hard on for Miss Beadle in this episode. It's like, okay, step back, Laura. She smells good and she's so beautiful. Not as beautiful as Mom, but she's so beautiful. And she smells like lemon verbena. We're going to hear that so many times. Lemon verbena. It's the only fragrance that women in Walnut Grove wear.
Well, also in the Waltons. I became obsessed with finding out what lemon verbena smelled like because Grandpa in the
Oh,
Waltons
that's
would
right.
talk about meeting Grandma and her
And
smelling
there's
like lemon verbena. And when he would try to get her a special gift, it would be some of that awful toilet water because she thought it was foolish. But he's like, oh, I love when you put on that lemon verbena.
But so the girls go to school. Mary knows how to read. Laura does not. So Laura is kind of starting from scratch.
She
And
knows
they,
her letters,
yeah,
but
they're picked on, but it's not like horrendous. They're allowed to play with the girls, although Nellie makes them do ring around the rosies continuously. And it's like, where's the fun of that? Just this
and
kid.
you would think that she wouldn't want to squat down in the dirt with
Yeah,
her
with her pretty
dress.
dresses, but whatever. Ma comes to town, and here's where I kept thinking, okay, this seems out of place because Ma comes to town and meets the Olsons, but I'm like, she's been going to church for weeks. Wouldn't she know them?
Yeah, that would
I
make
mean,
sense. I mean, she got yelled at in the first episode.
yeah. So I'm like, she's going to town.
And all the townspeople fit in this schoolroom.
Yeah. It's a tiny
So
town. So you again, the whole country girls doesn't ring true because you're all country. But Ma goes to town to sell eggs at the mercantile and introduces herself, which was my first like, wouldn't she know them from church? But
so maybe they never spoke.
that could be. But she goes to sell eggs, and Harriet is trying to undercut her for brown eggs, wants to tell, which is opposite of what it is nowadays. You pay more for the brown eggs.
Brown eggs are local eggs, and local eggs are fresh. Anyway.
So she gives her 4 cents less a dozen for the brown eggs. So yeah, this is Harriet's first crime for me is kind of shortchanging a customer. And
Okay. And here's my question with that. Last episode, Doc Baker is giving everybody chickens because that's what he gets paid with. And he gets too many of them. So people have too many chickens that they're willing to give them away. And yet
Carolyn's the
people
only one selling
don't
eggs.
have enough eggs.
That's
And so they're buying eggs. And the
yeah,
people at the mill are buying eggs. Like
yeah. It doesn't.
unless they're allowing all these eggs to hatch so they can have chicken because they're tired of rabbit stew, what the heck?
Yeah,
Because like I watch Low Family Farm on TikTok, and like they have 60 chickens to get 40 eggs a day. So how is she getting enough to sell
to
2 or 3 dozen
yeah, and keep
in
eggs for
town
the family.
a couple times a week?
Yeah, because
How
she's
many
making
chickens? I never see more than 4 or 5 running around Pa's
yeah,
land.
and she's making big pans of eggs for breakfast.
Yes.
So okay, so that doesn't
Many
quite add up.
questions. Many questions.
Yeah.
But
So
good on Ma for being inventive.
yeah, because she's like, oh, she takes it the first time, but the second time she's like, oh, I'm gonna handle it on my own. While she massacres, she tells Charles that she's gonna handle it on her own while she massacres her needlepoint.
Yes.
And she does this by selling the brown eggs to the guys at the mill, and only bringing Harriet the white, which pisses Harriet off. And I'm like, well, why are you mad? You're paying less for the brown eggs. Well, it's
Well, she
conflict for
does
the sake of
mention
conflict.
too that she sold the brown eggs for the exact same price 5 seconds later.
Yeah. In front of
So
her.
she wasn't discounting the brown eggs to the people.
Right. So in front of her. Because she was still
Right.
there. I'm like, okay. So Harriet, sin of
The
pride,
first crime.
and undercutting a supplier, basically. This seems like bad business. I don't know. This just seems like bad business.
Yes.
As opposed to the last episode where it was good business. But Ma figures that out, gets her to buy the brown eggs at the same price, and then looks at some pretty blue fabric and decides to make herself a dress. And Harry is like, oh, this burlap sack will be good for me.
Times. It wears better. Burlap wears so much better.
Country folk need this burlap. And Ma's like, nope, I'm taking the blue. and And then she's like, oh, I can't believe I spent this much money on fabric. And Charles and the girls are like, no, you're going to look beautiful in your blue dress, Mom.
Which she then works on all week
Yeah. Because the
because they're
girls,
supposed to, yeah.
yeah, the girls have a visitor's day at school where they're doing essays and they're like, you can wear your pretty new dress, Ma. So
She works on it every night
hand
to make sure
sew,
it's
hand sew.
handsome.
And then like last minute changes it and makes dresses for the girls because the girls say that they're, they do say that they're being picked on a little bit and um Laura's having trouble writing her essay, and so she wants to do something special for the girls. So she stays up all night adjusting that dress to two littler dresses
Right.
for Mary
And
and Laura.
let's look at Mary and Laura versus Caroline. Like, if you already cut the dresses, if you already cut just a dress length, that's all she bought.
Yeah.
How did you make that into two dresses for the girls with extra bric-a-brac? And that
Yeah.
was not something that she was sewing. That was late, like,
Yeah.
and ribbons and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So she must have had a lot of little doodads around the house to make these dresses sparkle.
Yes.
But the girls are like, you didn't have to do that, Mom. We would have been happy with our calicos. The blue fabric is still calico.
Yeah.
But they do this. These become their Sunday dresses that we're going to see for the first couple of seasons. So these blue dresses come back quite a bit.
Okay.
It's nice. It's nice.
It
Nice
was nice. It was a nice thing done by the mom.
Yeah, in one night. I mean,
Yes.
man, these Ingalls like to do things lickety split. They do not give themselves time for anything. But they go to the open house at the school, and Willie does his essay about how much he loves ponies, and Nellie does her essay about how expensive all the stuff in their house is. And then Laura does this really heartfelt essay about how hard her mom works and she loves her mom and she made him these beautiful dresses when she should have made a dress for herself. And it's really sweet. And then they leave and Carolyn's like, that's not what you wrote, was it, Laura? And she's like, no. And so they go into Miss Beadle and show Miss Beadle what she wrote. And it's just like, Ma works hard. Ma sews. I love Ma.
Ma cooks. Yeah.
She's like, she's just learning to write and read. Good Lord. Cut her some slack, Carolyn. And but Miss Beadle is like, well, we need to work on your penmanship because Mrs. Beadle's a good teacher.
Yes. Miss Beadle.
Miss Beadle. Miss Beadle. She's not Mrs. yet. And she's not Mrs. Beadle at the end, but Miss Beadle. So this is a nice episode. It highlights Carolyn quite a bit.
We did miss out on one part. That was that Pa had to give them 10 cents to go buy
yes.
a slate and a pencil and some paper and a pad. And they did not have enough money. And of course, they won't do it on credit because we established that in the past episode.
Except
however, in the future, that changes.
Yeah, except this is weird because Laura's like, Pa says cash on the barrel. He sticks to that. I'm like, well, the last episode he was walking in looking for a bunch of credit.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So
penny.
But they're 1 penny short. So this is how they use their Christmas penny. And then they split mentally that extra penny is between the two of them.
Yeah.
Of course, they'll need another slate pencil eventually, but they are able to break the pencil and then they each have half.
Yeah.
So
that's nice because Nels was like, well, you'll have your dad pay me when he comes in next time, which isn't technically credit and it's a penny, but no, Dad's no credit, cash on the barrel. It's like, no, that wasn't his tune last episode.
Yeah, so the interesting thing in this is when I was watching it is they never say how much they actually sell the eggs for, just that the brown are 4 cents less.
Mm-hmm.
And they write it down or they give her cash. But in the future, they'll actually write it down in the book, and that's how they can buy off of that. And
Yeah.
then that's kind of when they go into credit. But there is a woman that is in the store, an older lady, and she owes them like 60 cents that she
Yeah.
has to pay out. So you kind of wonder what the pricing system was back in those times. But
Yeah. How much was she selling? I mean, it's 4 cents less a dozen. How much was she selling a dozen eggs for? Good Lord. I
well,
mean,
they don't
they don't
say.
say.
And that's what I was interested in. So also, and that's where some of that bullying comes in as well, because Nellie and Willie come in and they eat all the candy they want, although Nels tries to tell them no, but they don't listen to
They don't
him.
listen to Nels.
He's got no respect. So
Zero.
yeah. So this episode is supposedly Karen Grassel's favorite episode.
Oh, really? Well, because it
That's
highlights her. So I am actually starting to listen to her autobiography. So that's interesting. I've got hers and then Melissa Sue Anderson's and then Melissa Gilbert's lined up in my Audible.
Oh, I didn't realize Melissa Anderson had written one,
Yeah.
but I'll have to borrow the Nelly one from you. So, or if
Yeah.
it's not Kindled, then I'll go ahead and buy it. So, um, but yeah, so we have how many? Two for Harriet, two
Two for
crimes for
Harriet.
Harriet.
Yeah, very prideful and then trying to undercut her supplier, which doesn't seem like good business. So it's just it's two
Yeah,
crimes.
the the insults about the fabric
Yeah.
and then the eggs.
And then the
So
eggs. And this is going to be a problem with Harriet Oleson. This character is so one note. It's like bitch. That's it.
but
And
she does it so well.
she
I
does.
mean,
Catherine
she
McGregor's a good actress at this,
she is one of the best actresses in the series.
but it becomes
Truly.
tiring teaching Harriet the same lesson over and over and over.
Yes.
Because this won't be the last time she tries to undercut the Ingalls.
Maybe she, like Pa, suffers from ADHD.
That could
She
be.
does.
That could very
She
well
has
be.
short-term memory loss. We should. She remembers things for an episode,
And
and
then
that's it.
forgets it until the
Yeah.
next week, and they have to
Yeah.
reteach her everything.
No, shirts stay on for Pa this
Yeah,
time. I don't
there's
think he
no
was shirtless at
Charles,
all.
and he doesn't cry. So this is a Charles free and a cry free episode.
Maybe that's why it was Karen
Maybe
Grassel's
that's why
favorite
it's
episode.
oh, thank God he kept his shirt on.
Yeah.
But it's nice. I don't think we see. Do we? We see Carrie when they go to the visitors' day because she's being held by Paul. We
Yeah.
should probably, gosh, how many times are we going to laugh at a kid going to the outhouse?
A bunch of times. It's coming. It becomes also problematic in future episodes where people get locked in there and
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And also just along with the first appearance of Nellie Olson, it's also the first appearance of Willie Olson,
Mhm.
who is actually Sarah Gilbert's half brother in real life.
Yeah, and
So
Melissa Gilbert's brother, because Sarah Gilbert
that's
is Melissa Gilbert's half sister.
right. Yes, Melissa Gilbert's
Yeah, yeah,
brother
yeah.
and Sarah Gilbert's half brother. Sarah Gilbert from Roseanne and the Connors. So
So the Gilberts are an acting
yeah.
family, but
Have you seen the pictures of what he looks like now?
yeah,
He's cute. I
I've
mean,
seen
it's not
pictures.
my thing, but
Yeah, I've seen
he's
pictures of like most of the guys, like the Laborteaux brothers, Patrick and Matthew, which we'll get to way later when they introduce
yeah.
Albert and Andrew Garden.
Patrick actually does a acting school, and you can follow him on TikTok.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting. He'll tell some throwback stories, so follow him if you can.
But
So,
in real life, the Ingalls only stayed in Walnut Grove for like 2 years. It was 2 harvesting seasons, which went miserably because locusts destroyed their crops both seasons. And after that, they moved to after that, they went to Burr City, Iowa, which she does not write about at all. And then they moved to South Dakota, which they do not do here. They are in Walnut Grove the whole time.
not the whole time. There is a point where they leave it.
Oh, well, yeah, they're kicked out a couple of times.
Yeah.
They have to move a couple of times because times get so hard. So I think that's where they squeeze in South Dakota. They go to South Dakota in like
Yeah.
the third or fourth season. We'll get to that though. But Walnut Grove is where they stay the majority of the time. And yeah, we're seeing this is the show's problem. It wants to deal with societal issues, but in doing so, it makes the town look psychotic.
Like Cabot Cove, there are certain
Yes.
towns in fiction you really don't want to
You
stay
just don't
very
want to,
long.
you don't want to visit. And Walnut Grove is one of them.
But there are no disappeared in this episode.
No.
Everybody we
Everybody
meet
stays.
comes back again.
So
Nobody dies. Nobody cries.
nobody dies,
Well,
nobody cries, and Ma doesn't scream Charles. It's
yeah.
a very
Atypical.
atypical episode. So in our next episode, we will be handling the 100-mile walk and the return of Mr. Edwards, Mr. Edwards' homecoming. So Victor French comes back. So
Looking
join us
forward to that.
yes, join
Yeah.
us for episode number 3 of Two Woke Bonnets, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Charles!